Here's this week's food for thought. As we look outside, we've begun to see that we have entered winter. And with winter comes snow. And with snow comes cold weather. With cold weather also comes ice. And one of the dangers with winter is that ice. And more specifically, trying to walk on it. It's slippery. You see, it's easy to fall and hurt yourself. Numerous times I've been very close to falling, and sometimes, truthfully, I've fallen on ice and slipping on the ice. But thankfully, many times, though, I've avoided falling on the ice, and I was able to gain my footing and then being able to stand on solid ground. Now, when I think about this, I think about one specific psalm, Psalm 73. I don't know if you've ever read Psalm 73, but in Psalm 73, the writer of that psalm, Asaph, could relate to the picture of losing his footing. But he says in this psalm, "My feet almost slipped out from under me. I almost lost my footing." Now, his problem, well, it wasn't the ice. His ice wasn't the problem for Asaph. His problem was his sin, and the particular sin of that of envy. You see, he envied how those who didn't follow the true God seemed to prosper and to succeed, while he, a believer, still seemed to suffer. Now, he envied led him to question God's wisdom and God's ways, to even thought about joining the wicked. Asaph even thought about joining the wicked in the midst of all this. His faith was slipping and sliding and towards the brink of even losing his faith. Have you ever been there? Perhaps you can relate. Maybe you've asked the same questions yourself. Maybe you've also felt like serving God was a waste of time and your efforts seemed pointless. Asaph was about to fall and possibly lose his faith, but he was saved by finding solid ground. Now, this solid ground allowed him to stop slipping. The solid ground was being in God's house and God's word, where Asaph was reminded of God's promises. You see, God's house is where we hear God's word that reminds us of that solid ground. Asaph says in the Psalm 73, "When I tried to understand this, it was very troubling to me until I went to the sanctuary of God. Then I understood their end. In God's house and in his word, God reminded Asaph that God had a plan to save him and all people by sending the Messiah, his one and only son, Jesus. God led Asaph to see how this present life is not the be-all and end-all, but there is a better life waiting for him in heaven. The same way there's a better life waiting for you in heaven as well. The same is true for us. You see, God has a plan for your life. He sent his son, Jesus Christ, to live and die and to rise for you and for me, so that you and I can have a future in heaven. And where do we find all the answers that help us when our faith seems to be slipping and when our faith seems to be falling? Well, we find this solid ground in God's word. And we can be encouraged by others when we join together at church. We find solid ground when we open our Bibles in Bible studies. When we open our Bibles in personal devotions. Are your feet slipping from envy or any other sins that the devil is putting in front of you? If so, find your solid ground in God's house. Find your solid ground in God's word. Find your foothold in your promises that he will bless you, all those who trust in the Lord. So as you look outside, as you feel the cold of the winter, as you look out for the ice, keep your foot grounded and watch out for the slipping, and keep your firmly planted in God's word this day. Stand strong in the word. Stand strong in God. Until next time.